Jay Mentel, presidente y director jurídico del Centro de Investigación Global Americans, enfocado en temas de derechos humanos, democracia e inclusión social en el hemisferio occidental, abordó cómo la presencia de China y Rusia es una amenaza en términos de desinformación. Expediente Público entrevistó a Mentel en San José, Costa Rica, en el foro de la ONG internacional Digital Communication Network Globals, Alfabetización Informacional en la era de la disrupción.
So we did a 2-year study looking at the mis and disinformation landscape in Latin America and the Caribbean with a particular focus on the way in which foreign state media, in particular Chinese and Russian state media, are engaging with actors on the ground in Latin America and the Caribbean to push certain messages, disinformation, misinformation, propaganda messages, to further their geopolitical ends.
Según Mentel, China y Rusia han usado como estrategia los vínculos que tienen en países de la región como Chile o Colombia y las redes con medios de comunicación para hacer propaganda de sus mensajes en el hemisferio occidental.
At the highest level, the engines of mis and disinformation are not creating new things, but rather they are taking advantage of existing things. And oftentimes, those existing things are more vulnerable in climates of polarization, in climates where there is existing mis and distrust in democratic institutions and processes. To delineate a little bit more about the differences between Chinese and Russian engagement.
China, la segunda economía más grande del mundo, por ejemplo, tiene los medios para cortejar relaciones económicas profundas con países en Latinoamérica y lo están haciendo activamente. Aunque la oferta de prosperidad comercial con los gobiernos que hace negocio en la práctica termina en contratos corruptos, un balance de exportaciones mayores para China y un voraz consumo de los recursos naturales.
We found that Chinese messaging was designed to portray China as a benevolent alternative to the United States in the hemisphere. The Chinese media we saw did a greater job of engaging with local media, whereas the Russian media did a bit of engaging with maybe less traditional media sources. But by and large, they are looking at existing social cleavages, seeing ways in which they can take advantage of them, seeing if they can promote like-minded local leaders all the way to the highest level of government, and seeing how they can spin certain narratives that are to the benefit of their own kind of geopolitical ends.
El presidente de Global Americans resalta la importancia de invertir en medios independientes para contrarrestar los discursos de odio y noticias falsas.
And I think one of the high-level findings from our research was the importance in investing in independent media. In some countries, those are less active and engaged, and when there is less engaged and active independent media, then state apparatuses can twist messages to their benefit. We also talked about the importance of educating the next generation of activists, the next generation of civil society leaders, the next generation of journalists.
El académico asegura que sí hay opción para contrarrestar la desinformación en países con dictaduras como Venezuela y Nicaragua, donde no existe libertad de prensa, y puede servir como ejemplo incluso para otros países de la región.
If we have countries in the hemisphere who are monitoring the situation for journalists or for civil society actors in Venezuela or Nicaragua, where journalists are arrested for putting out stories that are against the ruling regime, in those more closed information environments is essential so that actors in those environments, whether it's Venezuela, Nicaragua, or Belarus, can understand how to operate, can understand how to create more democratic space and more space to push back on mis and disinformation.
El esfuerzo de la sociedad civil y otros agentes para rechazar los tipos de desinformación existentes en la región es importante.
It requires work from civil society actors, from the academy, from policymakers all across the hemisphere. And it's important, as I mentioned earlier, to name and shame, I think, those actors that are engaged in mis and disinformation and those actors that are condoning it by doing nothing to stop it.
La presencia de medios de comunicación estatales rusos y chinos en medios tradicionales y redes sociales se ha expandido en los últimos años en la región latinoamericana, en la que las cadenas como RT, Sputnik Mundo, Telesur, Xinhua Español han incrementado su presencia mediática y digital para desinformar, de acuerdo a Global Americans.